Look at this. I think a new year is coming. Rabbi Wilhelm, happy birthday.
Thank you very much, Ben Zion. What brought you to my house?
On the special day, you're Farbrengen. This is
Oh,
the after party, yeah?
Yeah, but you came for the aftershocks.
Aftershock. So shock me. Give me some brachas. Give the viewers some brachas. Mazal Gever, you have a special superpower. Let's hear something.
The Rebbe Taka says that on the birthday, you pointed out the shofars and you made the comment that it's a new year. The Rebbe points out that the birthday is a special time. And everybody has the power to, first of all, the power to correct whatever has to be corrected and to start fresh, start new, turn a new page, right? A clean page, a clean slate. But I want to connect it to this week's Parsha. This week's Parsha is Bamidbar. Traditionally, Bamidbar is always before Shavuos because of the many lessons that the Midbar and the mitzvahs of the Parshas Bamidbar have to teach us. Primarily, we learn, if you get closer, you'll see how much all the ketchup and the mustard on my shirt. Primarily in the Parsha, we learn about the mitzvah of counting. And I want to point out two fascinating things about the counting. First of all, the pasuk says, "Mi ben esrim shana v'mayla kol yotze yitzhava b'Yisrael." We only count the people from 20 years and older. What's special about the 20 years? So we know, as the Mishnah says in Perkei Avos, ben esrim lir doif. And what does that mean? Yes, every Jew becomes mechuyev b'mitzvah at bat mitzvah, but from bat mitzvah till 20, you're not a mechuyev ba'inshim. You don't get punished yet for your mischiefs. Only once you're mature enough and you're 20 years old and you stumble, then you're mechuyev ba'inshim. In other words, the real struggles in life to overcome the challenges of the Yetzer Hara is really from a 20-year-old and older. When we see that a person is 20 years old and he's doing the right thing, he could be in the army of Hashem. He's the one that's willing to fight. Now, I once saw a beautiful shot. David HaMelech says in Tehillim, Chagar cherev al yerech gibor, tie a sword on the hip, on the side of a gibor, of a strong man, hoitcha v'hadarcha. And that's the glory. And what does it mean? So it's one commentary once said, the sign of a guy who just holds a gun and goes like this and like a cowboy and doesn't do anything. A guy who's ready to take the gun and fight and go out to war, he is what we call a real soldier. A guy who's holding a gun for show off doesn't mean anything. The same thing until a person becomes 20 years old. Or once he becomes 20 years old, he has the weapons and he's fighting, he is a successful soldier. And he's one that we count as part of the general counting of Hashem, of the Shvatim. Point number one. And then there is another crazy, fascinating point that the Ramban points out. The Ramban points out that it says, "Vayisyaldu amishpachoisam lebeis avaisam," that the Yidden had to go through Moshe and Aaron. Every year had to go through Moshe and Aaron and identify his social security number and who is his birth certificate, and they put him in which shave it was, and then they came to the final census. So listen to the Ramban. The Ramban says the etzem hadavar, the general point that every Yid had to go through, walk by Moshe and Aaron, and he has to see their name and see their heritage, where they come from. That was a benefit for this person, that you gave your name into Moshe and Aaron. It became a schus for your living. We know these stories by the Rebbe. The Rebbe in the most auspicious times of the year would just read the names of some of the Chassidim. The Ramban says this in Chumash, in Pasuk Mem Hey, that to have your name written by a tzaddik, and the tzaddik sees your name and who your lineage from, they will have that to daven for you, and that's what caused the multiplication, the numbers of the Jews. And many people use this Ramban as a mucker, that when you go for a tzaddik, the tzaddik should daven for you. You give a kvittel, what we call a pan, and you have your name and your mother's name, because he sees the name on a paper. That's what we have in the pasuk. Everybody had to go through Moshe Rabbeinu and give your credentials, and then Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron have it. They could pray for you. One last thing, it says when the original counting, Levi wasn't part of it, but later on, it does count Levi separate, and suddenly the numbers of Levi are so much smaller than everybody else. Everybody has 50, 60, 70,000. Levi has 22,000. What happened? Why is Levi's number so much smaller? So here too the Ramban says a phenomenal lesson. The Ramban says, you know why everybody had much, all other Shvatim had bigger numbers? Because all other Shvatim were enslaved in Shibud Mitzrayim. Because they went through the suffering of Mitzrayim, their success, their reward was so much bigger, they had multiplication. Large families. The Eibishter blessed them with large families. Levi, as spiritual, as great as they are, because they weren't in the Shibud Mitzrayim, they didn't have that bracha of having large families. So they only had the grand total of 22,000. Whereas the other Shvatim had many, many more thousand. That's a lesson in life. Sometimes you think, oh, I'm schwitzing, I'm struggling. But remember, those who went through the Shibud Mitzrayim ended up with much larger amount of Shvatim.
Shnas Hatzlacha. Thank you very much.
Oh man, thank you.